everyone, it's Stephanie here and welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be creating a card featuring some die cut inlay, and I'm going to be using the Yay For You card kit to do this. So this kit has this really great stamp set where you have the really large word Yay, and then there's a bunch of secondary sentiments that you can use with that. So there is a bunch of different occasions in this set. So there's birthday, there's baby, there's congratulations, thank you, just all sorts of different themes that you can use with just the stamps or in conjunction with the dies. So the So Many Yays dies is 3 different dies that have the word yay. One is more scripty, one is a fatter font, and then one is a little bit taller. And for this card here, we're going to be using the fatter font. So I have this card here that I've already created, and I did the die cut inlay technique with this. And what I did is I just die cut that large word yay diagonally from a panel, and then I also die cut the word from some panels that I had colored with some distress ink. And then I just inset them into those openings to create a fun diagonal look. So I wanted to kind of show you how I did that, so I decided to create a second card, and we're just going to change up the design on this one and the colors. So for this one, I'm going to change it up, and instead of using the green that I used on the original card, I'm going to use some purple ink. So this is Wilted Violet, and this is a pretty dark ink, so I was very careful to kind of use a lighter hand when I added the ink to the panel. And what I'm doing is I'm just adding the ink a little bit darker at the bottom, and then I'm letting it go a little bit lighter as I work my way up. And what I'm doing that for is to kind of create an ombre look. I want to have the ink a little bit lighter at the top of the word and a little bit darker at the bottom. So I just apply the ink heavier towards the bottom and then just kind of let my hand go a little bit lighter as I work my way up. And that really helps to kind of blend that out. Now once I had all of the colors onto the 3 panels, I'm just using some water to give them a little bit of a distressed look. This is completely optional. If you prefer not to use the water, you definitely don't have to. The distress inks look just as great on their own if you don't prefer this kind of water splotchy look. So it's completely optional. Do whatever works for you. And once you have that part done, it's time to die cut the words from here. So I'm just going to run these through my die cutting machine. And when you do this, you just want to make sure that you position the bottom of the word yay where the darker area of your ink is, and then just run that through. And we're only going to be using the actual die cut words here, so it doesn't matter if it's perfectly straight. We just want to be able to die cut this word and get that really nice ombre look. So you can see here now when I pop these letters out, I have the really dark color near the bottom, and then it fades off into a lighter color at the top. And I just really love the look of that when the card is finished. Now, as always, that's also optional as well. So if you prefer to have a solid color all the way through your letters, then just use the same amount of pressure when you're adding your ink, and that will ensure that you get a nice, smooth finish with the same color from top to bottom. So I just cut out the rest of those words, and now I have a separate panel here. This is a white panel. And you can see here on this first card I did my die cutting diagonally for a fun pattern. But for this one here, I'm going to change it up, and I'm going to do it straight up and down. And I'm going to kind of position the die cutting on the right-hand side of the panel. So I'm first die cutting my bottom word yay, and I'm intentionally letting it go off the side of the card here because I want to kind of let that run into a pattern paper strip that we're going to add a little bit later. Now for the middle one, I decided to position that one more in the center area of the panel. So I'm just kind of making sure it's lined up and straight. For this panel here, you definitely want to make sure you are putting everything on straight if that is the design you're going for, because this is going to be the completed panel on the card and where we're going to inset all of our colored letters. So now that I have the bottom and the middle one die cut, I'm just going to go ahead and repeat the process at the very top. So I want this one to kind of be in the same position as the bottom. I'm not doing any measuring or anything, but I am just kind of eyeballing it and trying to position it so that I have the same amount of the word going off of the edge, and I have a pretty consistent space in between the different words. So once I have that one die cut, we can go ahead and move our big shot and get ready to start doing the die cut inlay. So for this panel here, I need to add this to a backer piece, and this is just a piece of text paper. It doesn't need to be thick. You're never going to see this. This is just going to be where I'm going to add a whole bunch of adhesive, so you can see I'm putting a bunch of adhesive on there. And then I'm going to position this top panel right over top of that adhesive piece. Now I didn't get enough adhesive in that first Y in the middle letter, so I am going to add a little bit of adhesive on this Y here. And then I can go ahead and start to inset everything. And it's just like a puzzle. These are going to fit perfectly into the opening since we use the same die to die cut the negative space of the word as well as the actual letters. And I did make sure to hang on to the white areas in the inside of the letter A just so that I could add those back in as well. So I'm just going to repeat the process with all of the words here. So I'm just adding the pink to the top and then the blue or aqua color ones there on the bottom until I have this completely filled in. And what we're left with is this really great pattern with these yay words kind of inset into the background, and everything is completely one layer. And if die cut inlay isn't really your thing, you can definitely recreate this look by just die cutting the letters and then adding them onto a white panel directly on top without having the area to kind of inset them into. So now that I have everything in there, I'm going to trim down my panel. So I just kind of trimmed the right edge just to take off the extra pieces of the Ys. And then I also trimmed 1/4 of an inch off of the left side. And this is so we can add a little strip of black and white stripe pattern paper. So this is our black and white stripe pattern paper pad. It is my all-time favorite. I love this paper pad. I love the pop of black and white with some really bright colors. I just think it's a fun look on a card. And it's one of my favorite ways to kind of add a little bit of something if I don't want to keep it completely white in the background. So I'm adding this strip of pattern paper to the right side, and I did trim it down a little bit larger than the area that we're going to actually see when we add the top panel on. And I'm just cutting off the excess from the top and bottom. And then I'm going to take this whole panel and completely cover the back with adhesive so we can add this to our card base. Now I like to just take my card and flip it upside down and kind of put the panel against the card base and then push it all together. I find this is a great way to line it up perfectly and make sure that everything is lined up. Now once I have this on here, I decided I needed a little bit of black cardstock to kind of break up the words on the main panel with the stripe piece. So I'm going to cut out a very, very skinny piece of black cardstock. You can see here it's super skinny. And I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to this so that I can adhere it down. Now to do that, I'm just going to lay this onto a piece of scratch paper so I don't get glue onto my work surface. And I'm just going to run the liquid glue right down the strip so that I have it fully covered on the back piece. And then I'm just going to lay that right against the white panel and just kind of push that into place to kind of separate the two. And I really like the pop of black with the solid and then the stripes against it on the side there. To add my secondary sentiment, I'm going to stamp this onto a piece of black cardstock. So I've picked out the I'm So Excited For You stamp from the Yay For You stamp set. And I'm just going to stamp this onto a piece of black cardstock with some Versamark ink. Now this ink is just a clear sticky ink and it works really well to have embossing powder added to it. So you can see here I'm going to add some white embossing powder and it just sticks really nicely against that ink. I did take it to my heat tool off camera and heat set that. So now I have this really nice bright white sentiment. And I just trimmed this down so that I can add it to the card front. So I gave it a little bit of a slanted edge on the left side, and then I trimmed it down so that I could line it up right against that black strip that we added along the side of our panel. Now you can position this anywhere you want. I decided to go along the bottom and put it right over the very bottom yay. And then to complete the card, I'm going to add some clear sequins in those open areas. Now I'm going completely rogue here, and I usually use silver stickles to add into the center of my sequins. But I really wanted to keep the sequins kind of clear, so I decided to use sprinkled sugar, which is a really toned down Stickles. It's not super glittery like the silver I usually use. And I really loved the final result of having that clear glitter instead of the really bright and shiny silver. So I think I might have a new obsession. I apologize in advance if this is something that I continue to do on my cards. But now you can see the two cards side by side. I have both of the different yays, which are both die cut inlay, but I have different patterns for each card. I've changed up the colors a tiny bit, and I've also changed up the design a little bit. So I hope you enjoyed these cards featuring the die cut inlay technique with some word dies, and we'll give it a try. I thank you so much for watching today's video. As always, I appreciate you being here, and I will see you in another video soon.